Welcome back to Sika Strength and welcome back to the Sika Stand new show. Now, today's new show is, of course, brought to you by the Sika Strength weightlifting camp and S&C camp in Praia da Luz in south of Portugal. There's an airport an hour away. You can email us for details. There's some more details on the screen. And check out the Sika Strength app on iOS and Android for all of your programming needs. CoachBot, video library, adaptive loading, all that.
It's all there.
All the great stuff. Now, today's new show, obviously, there's I can't curse this early in the video, but
metric ton.
I'll curse later, but there's a metric ton of weightlifting, so we just have to be pretty selective with some of the stuff for the weightlifting. So if we didn't see something that you were waiting for us to talk about, I'm very sorry, and do leave it in the comments and, boost the algorithm. Just get mad at us, just get so hard.
Also, if you'd like us to do a full review of the biggest lifts of the competition, just let us know. We could do that as well.
Obviously, we're going to do a Tian full retirement video. Anyway, on with the new show. Okay, guys, everyone just...
Let's deal with today's video.
Everyone now, here. Just calm down. So first up, we have to talk about Hampton Morris setting the first senior world record for the men in USA weightlifting in a very, very long time. He clean and jerked 176. It's so close to triple bodyweight, the mythical triple bodyweight. Pop quiz, if anyone knows how many people have clean and jerked triple bodyweight in competition, and part B of the pop quiz is who has clean and jerked triple bodyweight the most times in competition. Leave the comments below and you won't get any prize, but you will seem like you know more.
Get a recognition forever.
Jamaica, this 176. Dara.
There's two big standout things on this one for me. One in the clean and one in the jerk. The thing on the clean is how insanely mobile his bottom position is. He's struck me before as an extremely mobile lifter. Obviously, he's in the lighter weight class. Obviously, he's younger. But the catch on this clean is about as low as I've ever seen him go. His ass is about to touch the ground. And he's literally eking every last millimeter out of that lift. It's absolutely insane. He does a great job of pulling himself under. Obviously, might be a case to be made of kind of over pulling at the top, but phenomenal bottom position. Really, really good job of arresting that bar. The second thing then is on the jerk. He does a great job of keeping his hips back. So obviously you'd see it a lot, people's hips kind of caving forward as they dip down in the bottom of that dip and drive. He does a really great job of keeping his hips back here, and just unbelievable performance overall.
Now, it must be noted that this wasn't enough to win the total gold. So, Lefa Bin won with a Snatch world record at 146. And this came total second for Hampton. His Snatch was 127. Quite a chunk behind the Snatch. So, it'll be interesting to see if he can make up that ground. So, very much looking like medal contention in Paris. I think Lefa Bin is probably almost certainly very, very likely going to be one of the athletes that are going for China. The entries need to be in by the 10th of May, so you have to submit who's going to the Olympics. So we've got just over a month to go before we know who's going, if it's released for us. So hopefully that'll be interesting to see. And moving on up to the next kind of section of the weight classes, we have the great Shi Zhiyong. Now, after this performance, it kind of looked like Shi Zhiyong wasn't going to go. So he ended up with silver. He snatched 165 for gold in the snatch. Clean jerked 191. So just a snatch here first. He came silver. Rizkih won in a surprise defeat over Ratmat. Ratmat missed 206 twice. Ratmat's clean and jerk missed the jerk twice. He cleaned it twice very, very easily, but he took a very short break in between those two attempts, something like 30 seconds or so. So in a very surprise upset. Now, most people thought Ratmat was going to demolish it, but it kind of puts Shi Zhiyong, in my opinion, in a better place compared to what happened in the 89s.
Yeah, I actually think it does put him in a stronger position, only because of what happened afterwards.
Yes.
He looked very, very strong here.
In the snatch, yeah.
In the snatch, looked very, very good, very convincing, which later Chinese athletes didn't look in the competition. If we're being honest, they didn't look like they're going to stick lifts in competition.
Except for Gigachad.
Gigachad. But that's really what you're looking at here. And I think a lot of the time, as fans of weightlifting and as people who are passionate about it, and maybe with people who we really enjoy this guy's lifting or that guy's lifting, or maybe certain aspects of their weightlifting, we kind of forget that. We'll think about Tian's best numbers ever. We'll think about the PR we see them hit in competition or in training. But making lifts in competition and making them consistently and reliably is the number one thing when they're looking at those Olympic spots.
It kind of looked like she might retire after this. So he's 30 at the moment. Lots of very bad injuries. We might be able to get some more in-depth stuff on those injuries. So Dr. Steph, the team physio, has been working with all the team, obviously, in the last 4 years. And he said once the team is announced and selected, he said we might be able to talk a bit more about it. So just need to stand by for that video, maybe sometime next month, hopefully, and get more in-depth on what's really going on, which would be great. So myself and I are very interested in that, and I'm sure you guys would be as well. Here's a 191. Far cry from a 190 kilo power clean for sure. I do want to say just on Shi Zhiyong, if we don't ever see him again, if this is his last competition, if he also retires, I really think Shi Zhiyong, if he had someone to push him, if he had Rat Matt to push him when he was in his prime, when he was power cleaning 190, I think we would have seen him blow Rat Matt out of the water in some senses. Like we could have seen him, we've seen him snatch 170 plus in training, you know, we've seen him do 205 in training. Like he was just, it's so incomprehensible that he's power cleaning 190 in training. Now that's say Rat Matt's not an amazing lifter, like cleaning 214, attempting at 206, the 204 kilo world record. It's massive weights, but I think Shi Zhiyong in his prime, it's a shame we didn't get to see them push, because we just never had anyone pushing Shi Zhiyong in the lifts. Like he'd always like demolished by the snatch was over, and then we see the clean and jerks, you know, literally a 190 power clean, which was like 9 kilos under his world record. We did that 10 kilos, so it's weightlifting is fickle.
It's unfortunate. Like the one kind of standout case here is Lasha. Lasha doesn't really have that many people pushing him, yet he has excelled. But in almost every case, the greats you know of now had 3 or 4 people behind them really pushing them hard the whole time, or they might have as they were in the juniors, they'd have someone in the seniors who are really looking to kind of push off that perch. It's hard. The wolf at the top of the hill is just never as hungry as the one who's climbing it, you know.
I suppose in Lash's case, it was post-hoc. He dragged people up in the snatch specifically, but it was only because he'd gone so far ahead for so long. It wasn't like they were there. And he pushed it. He did push Salimi, or rather, he kind of benchmarked Salimi and then just blew past him. So at the time, it looked like he was kind of eking past him, but then it was like no one's going to snatch 216 again. And then it was like that 217, and it's like, oh shit, it's 225.
Yeah.
225, 264. Now here's Rizkih's 201. Rizkih pulled out a performance of the lifetime, complete underdog coming into this. No way was anyone guessing that this would happen. So this was, I'm pretty sure, no, actually we've seen him do a 210 in training. So this is a competition PB. It's funny. So he did 164 in the snatch. Very good snatcher, better snatcher compared to Rat Matt. And this 201 then was an absolute just balls out effort for a clean and jerk.
Absolutely. I'm right in saying this was his second attempt, haven't I?
No, this is third attempt.
Was this third attempt?
Yes.
This was, I think, with the amount of press and the amount of hype. No, it is second attempt. And I think for the third one then he missed it. But for the amount of hype that Rat Matt's been getting in the last few months, even longer than that, it goes without saying that does put a fire under someone like Rizkih here, who is trying to push him off that podium, you know.
So the notable thing about Rat Matt is he's done a lot of his big lifts from the B or C group, so he'd set those world records or attempts. And obviously when you know you're falling yourself, you can be a bit more relaxed and there's no other big dogs in the group. But it could be said, or it could be speculated, that in that group, did he get pushed or did he feel the pressure? Now, in my opinion, if I was on Team Indonesia, I would be saying Rizkih's injured, Rat Matt's going. It would just make so much more sense. Like, Rizkih had to pull out a massive lifetime performance in this, huge performance. Absolutely fantastic lifter. Obviously, he's an incredibly great lifter, and it's fantastic. Cleaning 201 at 73, 164, great numbers. But if I was running Team Indonesia, Rat Matt's more likely to put up those big numbers. You're going to have a bad competition. Rat Matt had loads of great competitions, competes really regularly. And it's going to happen at some stage where you're just going to have one bad competition. And if anything, I'd prefer you've had that before the Olympics, because
absolutely,
statistically, you're going to have a bad day in weightlifting. You just cannot continuously, if you're competing regularly internationally, you're just not going to have a winner all the time unless you're like Lasha or Ilya. Other than that, everyone else has a bad day at some point. So I would still be looking to say, look, Rizkih's injured, he can't go. Rat Matt is going for Indonesia. That's what I would be thinking. But who knows, maybe they're like really diligent with their athletes, maybe they're really honest, and they might be like Rizkih won, so he gets to go. Obviously we don't know what's going on behind the scenes, but if I was Lord overruler of Team Indonesia, it'd be Rat Matt for me.
It's hard. You don't want somebody, obviously a phenomenal performance, it has to be said, absolutely amazing performance, but you don't want somebody's best day ever to be the thing that qualifies them for the competition.
Yes.
You want it to be a run-of-the-mill competition that gets them to the big one where they can kind of lay out their wares and really get their best possible performance out of them. So it is interesting. Obviously, is it the 10th of May you're saying?
I think it's the 10th of May, yeah, the submission.
That's going to be an exciting day, an exciting couple of weeks between then and now.
So Shi Zhiyong has a lot more in the snatch, I think, to give even at the moment. Hopefully he could keep progressing maybe on the clean and jerk. So Rizkih was quite close to him in the snatch, just a kilo between them. But looking at that 165 from Shi Zhiyong, it looks feasible that he could hit closer to that 170, maybe 168. And maybe at a bit more time, does he have a big clean and jerk? Like, Rizkih could still win anyway. But again, it's the 3 M's of international sport, which is medals matter most, or medals. Moving on to the 89 kilo group, we had a bit of a blockbuster session, probably one of the better sessions I've seen in a long time. So Carlos came out and finished on his third attempt, went 6 for 6. He did 181 to set a snatch world record to beat Dayin's 180 snatch world record. And then we had Jeison Lopez snatching 182, which I called. I was very happy with that. I said he's going to snatch 182. Absolutely phenomenal snatcher. And then Carlos attempted 224. So let's look at the 181 first.
Yeah, Carlos's snatch technique is slightly different. Obviously, he has very unique clean technique here, but this is solid. Like, this isn't, there's no point when you're watching this lift that you think he's going to miss that or there's a possibility he's going to miss it. My big question is, do they still count as a world record holder, or do you have to hold it for more than 24 hours?
No, I think you have to hold it for more than 24 hours. You have to hold it so you don't get the title of a world record holder. Now, obviously, he has the other world records.
Yeah.
So it's not like it's a boon for him. But huge improvement on his snatch. So we'd only seen him do like 176 or 177 before that. Possibly the only snatch world record holder in history to jump forward on the snatch. It's a very interesting tactical model. That second and third pull is insane, and that's what really saves him. Even though he's so far forward, he's got so much pizzazz left.
Yeah, there's so much very power at the hip, is what I'd say.
Now, compare that to Jeison Lopez technicality, which is fantastic. Like, Jeison's looks like he's got 5 more kilos there. He is the Colombian, and this 182 was superb.
It's absolutely bloody gorgeous.
Yeah. That's
not what world records look like usually.
No.
World records are usually hard fought. As you said, it looks like there's plenty more kilos in the locker there. But that is, I love the idea of just beating that by a kilo. I love the idea that he didn't go for an all-out attempt. Obviously, this is the penultimate competition for many athletes, but this is a absolutely technically gorgeous snatch.
It does have to be reiterated that it doesn't matter who wins these comps as long as you're going to the Olympics. No one cares about winning these comps. Obviously, people care about world records, and that's very important as well for financial gain for the athletes, of course, and pushing the sport forward. But it doesn't matter who wins these as long as you've got your space. So for some people, they'd have to be winning, like Rizkih, for example, whereas like Jeison and Carlos and Jeison and Carlos at least. And Nino, you're definitely going, so you just need to make sure you don't lose your top 10 spot, which is very unlikely for those. And Jeison attempted 215, missed the jerk, but a very good clean and jerk at 210. So could be an interesting event at the Olympics. Always best just to hold your breath for the Olympics, because it can sometimes be a letdown if there's a massive class. So we'll wait and see who goes. This is Carlos's 224 attempt, so missed 224 twice.
Yeah, we've talked about the kind of very non-standard or non-typical technique, particularly in the clean. Carlos does a couple of things that really wouldn't be ideal. He doesn't seem to have made those same improvements or those same changes in his clean as he had with his snatch. But this is still very, very close. Like, it's damn close.
Not to get crucified, but I'm sure a lot of regular viewers will understand that when you say someone has technical issues, you're not saying they have bad technique. You're saying relative to themselves that they have technical issues that they could improve upon. And if you miss a lift that you've cleaned and you could have jerked, then you have technical issues most likely there to address. I don't think anyone would argue that Carlos has some things to clean up here. We mentioned this a few times before, but Gabriel was talking about his technique, and he mentioned this in an interview with Turkmenistan, that he says he knows he needs to clean up his technique. It doesn't look to have changed much in the clean and jerk. Definitely some on the snatch, which is quite interesting. But it cost him a little bit here. It is literally the difference between 2 or 3 more kilos, which could be the difference between an Olympic gold medal or the difference between setting a world record. Now, that said, I think Carlos is probably in it, the gold medalist. I don't think,
Yeah.
given how good he snatches currently, it's, I don't see anyone else putting up the clean and jerks to match him. Here's a 220 kilo clean and power jerk in the training hall.
Now, this is a level of impressive power in that kind of, they talk about shoulder separation in the jerk and that being a kind of crucial phase. The way that bar flies off his chest is absolutely insane, and you cannot change my mind on that. The amount of power, the amount of upward speed in that barbell. He's probably one of the most, definitely in that weight class, he's definitely the most powerful of the athletes.
Why? I just don't get the jokes about he's been 19 for 19 years, or he's
Oh
been
my
19.
God.
It's,
It's the same as when you played underage sport.
Yeah.
And people on the sideline, like overbearing parents, would be like, a birth cert, can we see a birth cert, referee?
yeah.
Like, this isn't funny.
It's not funny, like. But anyway, this 220 kilo power jerk is obviously outrageously impressive. He is absolutely just mind-blowing how frequently he can do these heavy clean and jerks. They always kind of look very similar levels of difficulty. He's always doing 220s in competitions, in Bundesligas, in training before the competition, then going into the competition. It's an outrageous level of resilience and capacity just to hit these big numbers. I can't imagine what he's doing in training if he's doing this in competitions and leading up to the competitions.
Yeah, I can't imagine what's being hidden.
So it looks like Tian is actually retiring. I think he might come back and do the Chinese Nationals, the Chinese Games next year as one last competition, but from what we've seen, this is his last international competition. He retired when he didn't make Tokyo, but he came back out of retirement, and he ended up having obviously not a great competition because he bombed out. So he snatched 171. Snatch looked very good. I thought he would have made a lot more in the snatch, but he went 215 and then attempted 226 or 225 and 26. He didn't stand up at 225, but then the 226, then this clean here, looking very, very easy. So obviously massive clean for the 89s, and just couldn't quite pull the jerk together.
It's hard. It's really hard looking at someone in his position where he has retired. He said he's going to give it another roll of the dice. Obviously, this time it's a 3-year cycle rather than a 4-year quad. So it's not quite as much, but still a massive amount of time invested into making another Olympics. It's sad. It kind of it bears thinking about the effect that has on athletes. The amount of time they put into their careers, the amount of time they put into these performances, and then for him not to pull through, and probably not through his own fault, if we're being honest. Qualification's very difficult. It's this time around. Team China are in a difficult position this time around. And it's just hard. He's kind of caught in the crossfire. He's by no means an old athlete, but he's just not there. He's not there in terms of his own performances or relative to the people in his own weight class. He's not there. The 226 clean is an absolutely gorgeous clean. It's up there with some of his best cleans he's done in competition, certainly at this low a body weight. So it's for want of a better term, it's sad.
Well, the problem is, or the thing about it is that he could have made these lifts. He was capable of going. It wasn't like he was completely out of shape and he had no chance of making any of these lifts. Like, he was very much in the position to make this, judging by how easy that clean is. If you can clean it, you have obviously a very high level chance of jerking it. So it's kind of tragic because he could have gone and he could make these lifts, and he's made these lifts in clutch situations before, like in Rio with a 217. So he is capable of doing these lifts, so it adds a bit more tragedy to that because he could have. So here's a 225 kilo clean and jerk he did 6 weeks ago. He said, did this a month and a half ago, but it came with shoulder pain again, but I'm satisfied because my surgery was a success. So a bit of an end of an era for a lifter if he is fully retired from that international scene. 225 kilos here in that very famous training hall. Full squat jerk as well.
Yeah. To be honest, his powery jerk, in my opinion, was probably better. It was definitely more consistent. The problem with dropping into those full squat jerks, we've seen it in umpteen number of competitions with a number, particularly of Team China athletes, how inconsistent the squat jerk is, why you don't want the squat jerk. And I wonder, is that some of the reason that for this competition, if he was erring more towards that deeper catch in the squat jerk, is that the reason that those 225 and 226 weren't hit?
It is. We'll never know, or we will know. Then we, of course, had Dayin, who probably isn't going to go either. So he took a higher spot than Tian in the competition. So he went 173, 210. He looked really fucked. Like, he was jumping to the left a lot, favoring his left leg a lot, which wasn't something we'd seen before. Seen a little bit of an imbalance in the start position, but that's kind of pretty normal. A lot of people a little bit in the kind of the hips, but he missed the 210. He opened the 205, missed 2 snatches. He looked beat up, to be honest, and I don't mean that as an insult. I mean he looked hurt.
The real standout thing for me on this clean and jerk, you can see it in particular, is how soft the clean catch is. And that's something we haven't seen from him before. Usually it's a much, much sharper clean catch. It's by no means bad. It's not bad technique or anything like this, but it's certainly not as sharp or not as aggressive in the catch as we'd usually see from him. And maybe that is just indicative of the situation he's in.
So I think it's probably unlikely we'll see Dayin go. I mean, he's super outside shot and even a medal, let alone gold. So doesn't really have the clean and jerk in him. So I don't think Dayin is going of the 3 spots available to China. Now, someone who's definitely going, or well, not definitely, but very likely to go, is Liu Wanhua or Gigachad. So he did 181 and 232 kilos for a senior clean and jerk world record. Now, he looked on fire. I thought he would have snatched more looking at his openers and looking at the training hole lifts, but the clean and jerk was outrageous.
Yeah, as you said, the snatches looked very good in competition. It looked like they could give him a 4th and a 5th attempt and he would have kept going up, to be honest. But this 232 is probably one of the standout lifts from the competition. We have a later lift coming up in the new show today that I think is the standout lift. But this 232 was absolutely unbelievable. Particularly the clean on his second attempt didn't look great. It looked a bit hard, a bit slow as he was standing up. Obviously, they're colossal weights. The clean on this 232 looked difficult as he stood it up, although not as difficult as the previous lift. But the jerk is just so, so good. Team China have an unbelievable ability to produce good split jerkers.
Yeah, it's so funny because very frequently we see a high number of the international team, and specifically the men's side, squat jerking or power jerking, but their split jerkers are outrageously good. So it's a funny situation. In that same session, we had Lesman snatching 185. So he only took 3 attempts total, so 2 snatches and 1 clean and jerk. And he obviously has this 186, sorry, not 185. So he has his spot. Like I was saying, it doesn't matter who wins. He needs to pull out a big clean and jerk and certainly a big snatch if he wants to make gold, but a good chance at medal contention. So kind of keeping that, I suppose, hidden, which is definitely a smart thing to do, not showing all your cards for a competition that doesn't really matter if you're going to the Olympics.
An interesting thing happened, and I think it was on this lift with the down command being given from the judge. So you can see the judge at the front of the platform. You can't see it from this angle. The judge kind of threw his hand up and his hand waved around in the air, and Lesman dropped it, and then he put his hand down as the bar was dropping, and there was that kind of split second there where nobody quite knew what was happening, but very, very good snatch. And to be honest, I think a lot more weightlifters, if you're in the position where you've already qualified, should be doing this. Showing up, making those 2 or 3 attempts, getting a total down, and doing your job and going home.
So in that session, we actually had the best snatchers from the B group from a Turkmenistan lifter, an absolute giant of a person. The Davran Beck, who snatched 187 as a 102 from the B group. Clean jerk's like 207, or 205. Now, not an amazing clean jerker, but the biggest snatch, so very, very, very interesting. And this was to help him break into that top 10 for Paris. And Dara's seeing a kindred spirit here in the snatch, I think, are you?
The longness for his height is very pleasing for me to look at. One of the major standout things from this competition is the standard of the 2 Turkmen lifters I saw lift. Their technical model and how repeatedly good their technique was over the course of their lifts really stood out for me. Obviously, we've seen Turkmen lifters in the past. We've never seen Turkmen lifters with this level of technical prowess, and they were streets ahead of many of the other lifters in their class and many of the other lifters in the competition. It has to be said, I'm not sure what their system is. I'm not sure if there's a new coaching staff there or what's going on, but their technique was Krispy Kreme okay hand signal sign.
So then we had, obviously, Meso Hassano was supposed to compete in the 102s, and he looked to be in outrageous shape. So here's a 220 in the training hall. He told me he was going to clean and jerk the world record, but he went for 230 against the best wishes of his father, Ibrahim, and he hurt his adductor, so they had to go to the hospital. All seemed okay, and he should be fine in a few weeks, but they didn't want to risk the competition. So this 220 was pretty crazy, and with that 180 snatch. So Meso looked to be in great shape, but no point risking it for the idea of that World Cup.
No, Meso looked to be in phenomenal shape. I think we're seeing probably a hint of what he's going to be like at this Olympics. I think this Olympics will be his one. I think 2016 he was very young. Obviously he got gold in Tokyo. But this Olympics, I think that slightly heavier body weight, that few years extra, that bit more development, his lifts for the last year have been going up and up. He's really been improving. And I think he's going to be the big dog this time around.
We'll see. We've got probably Gigachad. Akbar is a 102, competing as a 109 at this competition, so not cutting weight. And then Meso. So everyone who wants to go to the Olympics has to weigh in at this World Cup. But you don't have to lift, of course. So I think people are probably forgetting about Akbar. I think Akbar is just going to pull something massive out of the bag. And I think he's definitely the highest in competition snatch. We see him do 200 or 205 of the super heavy, and I know he's cut down a good few kilos, but he is an outrageous horse. So I think it's all to play for the three of them, and it'd be kind of hard to make any prediction. Next, we've got Olivia Reeves. So Olivia competed as a 71, and she clean and jerked 150 kilos, snatched 118, but this 150 is outrageous, crazy.
To be honest, I think this is the standout performance of the competition.
You said that a minute ago.
No, I said that was my second biggest standout of the competition.
Viewers, can we fact check him on that?
This is the one I was alluding to coming up later. This is absolutely unbelievable. Not for the sheer weight. The weight and that number at that body weight is unbelievably impressive. But for how pedestrian this looked, how this looks like a training lift. Obviously, the catch and the clean is a bit difficult. It's 150 kilos at 71 kilo body weight. But particularly the jerk here just looks so good. She looks so consistent in competition. She looks so comfortable at competition. And her numbers are climbing at a rate that no other American athlete is climbing that quickly. No other athlete currently competing is making this kind of progress this quickly. So I cannot wait to see what she does at the Olympics.
Yeah, so obviously massive lifts in the 71 kilo class. So obviously she's not going to do her best attempts in this World Cup, so she's hopefully going to keep progressing like that. So hopefully we'll get to see some massive lifts. Next up, we have an unknown lifter. This is his coach posted this, and I'm pretty sure he's a Swedish lifter, and it's a 200 kilo clean and jerk in some local competition. It's definitely Sweden, and I assume this is a PB. It looks unbelievable. What a lift. So nice.
Unreal.
That's exactly how you want your possibly first 200 kilo clean and jerk to look like. A big thing to stand out in this is the start position. Super diligent at the start position. Very repeatable. Very consistent start position. Takes his time. Really sets his back. You can see him hitting as much extension as he can hit for himself. And then as he sets down here, sets that lower back and keeps that set position as he's pulling. And then holds a hook grip or holds as much of a full grip in the turnover as he can. And then an absolutely excellent split jerk in no doubt overhead. What a lift.
Yeah, you've said it all there. This is just a bloody gorgeous 200 kilos. And I love the fact as well that it's 200 kilos in shock.
Yeah.
Like that is so good. I'd love to know a bit more about this lifter. If you do have information, if you have his Instagram or name, age, what he's doing, if he's competing internationally, let us know, because it's an absolutely great clean and jerk.
So moving on then, we have the Bilbo Swaggins, aka John Haack, weighing in at 93.45 kilos. So he was supposed to go for a sub 90 kilo class, but he said he was cutting weight and he said he just didn't feel great, so he stopped the cut for this competition, and he did some massive lifts. So he did a 365 kilo squat, a 252.5 kilo bench press, but the most notable of all was this lifetime deadlift PB, which is 426 kilos. John is just one of the strongest people in history ever, and high bar, conventional, no crazy arch in the bench, no ridiculously wide grip or anything like that, and it's just that 426 is crazy.
Yeah, in last week's Nude Show we had a 420 in training, which looked amazingly easy. Now, obviously, deadlifting in training is completely different from deadlifting in competition because you don't have the massive fatigue that comes from this massive build-up over the course of the day where you have your squat warm-up, then squat competition, bench press warm-up, then bench press competition. The deadlift tends to be later on in the day. You tend to have a massive amount of adrenaline already after dumping out. And so deadlifting in competition is a very, very different thing. But this still looks absolutely great. Like, it's not as fast as the 420 last week, but it's for a 426 all-time PB. My God, I don't know what else I can say.
Then we have the 1 rep max, or Max and Sheeter, squatting 331 kilos in his customary uber deep style, so absolutely burying the squat, and it's something we love to see, is this nice deep squats, especially from the powerlifters, and just keeps them honest, you know.
What I really like with Max and squat as well is every single time you see him squatting, it's super consistent in terms of pace. We see it a lot, particularly with the low bar powerlifters, is that they really restrict the pace of that descent as they go kind of heavier and heavier or more towards that 1RM end strength. Maxon tends to be incredibly consistent every single week. I feel like every squat we've seen him do, whether it's a set of 5, whether it's a set of 3, or whether it's a heavy single, looks exactly the same as this. And it's uber repeatable. It's obviously getting great results for him. So I love to see it.
The interesting, he's got quite a wide stance, pretty toe straight forward, which is interesting, but he's still in his flats, looks like barefoot style shoes. And again, as Dara said, super controlled, super repeatable. Everything is the same consistently, which is one of the best things you can do for your weightlifting, your strength training, any of your sport specific activities, is making them as reproducible as possible. Here we've got Joey Shaw, who's an 83 kilo powerlifter, and he hit this PB overhead press, an overhead strict press, very strict, at 120 kilos.
Yeah, this is a very, very nice strict press. The starting position for the strict press is a major thing for me. Not that I massively care about people if they say they're strict pressing, but they might have a bit more body English involved, or maybe there's a bit of a dip and drive at the start. I really don't care. But if you're going to call something a strict press, this is what it should look like. The bar should be touching your clavicles. You don't necessarily have it in a front rack position. You don't need the bar resting on that full front rack position, in my opinion, for it to be a strict press or a kind of legitimate strict press. But certainly that contact with the clavicles is important, and no kind of initial drop down to get at the touch. I think it should be starting there, and it should be starting in a fully stationary position there. And this is exactly what we see here from Joey. Really, really nice, very, very controlled. And I love the absolute dump into the rack as well at the end. If you are failing a lift and this starts to happen to you, you do exactly what he did there.
Get out.
And you just get out of the way and let that bar do whatever it wants. A lot of the time, once those plates fall off one end, the bar will flip back up over. That's why there's a hole in the wall of my shed. But you just get as far away from that bar as you possibly can without turning your back to it.
What's crazy is everyone's questioning the weight in the comments. Like, he's competitive powerlifter. Actually, it's 145, not 265. Just count the weight. I'm sure he did, but these are kilo plates. Another comment, is that 110? No, it's 120. I'm sure, again, he knows. Someone else goes, it's 225. Nope, it's 120. Someone else goes, that's only 145, unless I don't know how to count. You don't? It's just mind-blowing, the confidence people have in the comments.
But that's people seeing 25 on the side of a plate and be like, no, it has to be pounds.
That has to be pounds.
Has to be pounds.
Now, here we've got one of the heaviest high bar squats ever. So the heaviest high bar squat, as far as we know, belongs to Mart Same of Estonia. But this is a Polish lifter. His name is Kon Desvig. W is V. I think W is V in Polish. Now, Polish people never give a fuck.
No.
They never seem to care.
I feel like they're like Irish people in that way.
But they squatted. He squatted 392.5 kilo PBs. Oh my God. He squatted 392.5 kilos at a body weight of 124. And, no spotters, just in his kind of discount mono lift thing, and just really just nailing that. So he's obviously said he's going for 400 kilo plus, or does he think he's going to be able to do that? So it's really hard to tell with these weights, but looking at this, it looks like he could.
Yeah.
Possibly 405 there, maybe. Certainly the 400 looks like it could be there.
Definitely, I think the 400 is there. As you said, it's difficult to tell. And to be honest, I think it's difficult to tell because of the speed of that descent. You don't really know, like, is it slow like that because that's how he does every heavy squat, or what is it? But it is uber high bar. Like, that bar is sitting on his neck here. Very nice torso angles. Really, really nice squat. What the major kind of standout thing for me here is how fast he stands up out of the bottom position. He hits that bottom position, which, it has to be said, when we're squatting to parallel like this, your bottom position is not made of concrete. Your bottom position is not this kind of solid, all-out end range of motion place. You decide where that bottom position is. And obviously, as you do more training and that becomes more consistent, it's easier for you to hit that same position each time. But when you're squatting to parallel, to have a bottom or a turnaround that looks that strong and that sharp is a very, very impressive thing. Rivaled only as impressive as his hamstring flexibility is to kick the barbell afterwards.
It's like he didn't tear a hamstring. So here we've got Maitna Ali. So she squatted 150 kilos in competition, and she's 14 years old. 14 years old. She was missing this 150 a week and a half and a week out. You can see the clips here. And then in the competition, she just nails 150 kilos at 14. This is
insane strength.
Absolutely.
It's such a good squat as well. Like, the positions are so good. It's not this crazy wide stance, low bar to parallel. Like, this is a very, very nice looking squat. You'd see it kind of better on the ones she missed. It looks like a kind of high bar Olympic style squat.
Yes, the Olympic squat, like.
Which obviously makes it immediately better.
Are you with the 80s York magazine? 50s?
The Olympic squat.
Man, you see, you got him doing the Olympic squat, you see.
What we call that right there is the Olympic squat.
Here we've got Graham Barton, who is 313 pounds, running a 4.8 40-yard dash. Now there's a lot of people give out in the comments talking about how is this useful, does this even matter? But I don't care about that. We're just caring about this absolute gargantuan man running a 4.84 at 313 pounds, which is just about 140 kilos. Holy moly.
I in no way care how this relates to American football. What I care about is a man this big moving this fast.
Mm-hmm.
It is so impressive. I don't think people realize how much weight affects running, whether it be sprinting or long distance running. How much you weigh makes an absolutely colossal difference to how fast you can run. And just, if you want to try it, obviously it's different, but if you want to try it, put 10 kilos in a backpack and try and run a kilometer or try and run a 400 meter lap, and you'll see how much more terrible it is. In this case, obviously, most of that weight is muscle, and its contractile potential obviously adds to your ability to sprint. But the sheer mass and moving that much mass that fast is just crazy.
People are saying, it doesn't relate to the game, but in terms of just looking at attributes, if he can run that fast, that's at that heavy, that is a useful metric to have in your athlete, even for testing. So it doesn't mean he's good at the game of American football, but it certainly means he's got some speed behind him and potential to be a decent athlete. Here we've got trained by JP, so I don't know his full name, but this is 317 kilos for a set of 4 stiff-legged deadlifts, and he is massive. I really like this is barefoot as well. For some reason, if you're really well built and you do things barefoot, for some reason the aesthetic just goes up a little bit. It's not really, no one knows why. Maybe it's a bit more primal, but he's got 317 kilos for a set of 4 on the stiff-legged deadlift, and you can get just a little bit of a sense of how massive he is from behind when he's doing those deadlifts. He's of course a pro bodybuilder, but this is crazy levels of strength. Stiff-legged deadlift 317 for 4.
The stiff-legged deadlift doesn't get enough love, in my opinion. I think a lot of people leave it out. In this case, being this incredibly strong, obviously, you don't have to be doing 317 kilos for 4 reps on a stiff-legged deadlift, but having a much stronger stiff-legged deadlift is just so useful for everything. If you're a weightlifter, powerlifter, field sports athlete, combat sports athlete, whatever it is, just being able to pick things up off the ground without having to bend down in the squat position will make you so much more robust. It's actually ridiculous. Even if you're a bodybuilder and you're constantly loading plates, constantly moving gym equipment around the place, having a strong back cannot be overstated. Obviously, as we said here, he's an absolute colossal mountain. But just being stronger in your back is something you're probably not concentrating enough on, no matter what sport it is or no matter what you're training for.
Now here we got Mitchell Hooper with, I think this is a split jerk PB at 220 kilos. And something you said before, but his probably biggest thing isn't certainly the technique of the positions. It's mostly his mobility and his overhead position. So we've mentioned this as well, that we've been helping some strongmen over the last couple of months as the split jerk has become more popular on improving the positions. And most often, it's not really the technique that is killing them, it's the mobility available to them, because you need to be very supple, you need to be able to hit those positions very, very freely. The more restricted and rigid you are, the harder it is to be faster, the harder it is to be comfortable in the overhead position, the more kind of apprehensive you're going to be about that finished position. If every time you hold that axle or that barbell overhead in the split jerk, or after you finish the split jerk and it's uncomfortable and it's really tight, it's going to be harder to reproduce that and you're going to be less likely to be comfortable in that position. So fixing that mobility is probably one of the bigger things. But Mitchell is obviously, taking to the split jerk very well, given it's only been a few months and he's already hitting 220. It's pretty impressive, you could say.
Yeah, it's insane. Like, it's so impressive how quickly he's progressing. To be honest, that overhead mobility thing is a really interesting thing. I think there's a massive neurological component here. You'll see as he brings his feet back together, and we've seen it on different reps and different sessions as well, he's able to get his elbows locked out in that overhead position. And I think a lot of it is that kind of natural protective mechanism of keeping the barbell out in front, or the axle in this case out in front, keeping those elbows bent so he can kind of move that weight around and just not be quite as locked in. And I really think a lot of reps at 160 or 180 kilos would do him a lot of good here, just to be able to immediately lock out the elbows, immediately get it into that accepting position overhead, rather than having to semi-lock it out, then bring your feet together and then lock it out again.
The axle changes the overhead position a little bit, but not massively in the overhead position compared to obviously deadlifting or cleaning it. But in terms of holding overhead, especially for very large athletes, it's not a major difference, and it will affect the overhead position a little bit of how far you can get it back behind your head, but still there's definitely more room to improve there if he so wished. Now, next we've got this video of some American wrestlers. Harry Maltese is a week out from his competition in this video, and he's doing some outrageous displays of gymnastic capabilities. And I know some people are like, oh, how does this relate to wrestling, or gymnasts can do this or whatever, but he's not a gymnast, he's a wrestler. And it's absolutely mind-blowing, the level of power he's displaying, control, precision, athleticism. It's ridiculous.
Particularly when you take that he's a big dude as well. Like, he's over 200 pounds. He moves
6 foot.
He's 6 foot tall. He moves incredibly well. When you look at the sport of wrestling as well, when you're looking at particular positions being really important, someone pinning you versus you being able to turn them over, those kind of very, very obscure movements, being able to twist and being mobile around his T-spine like that is so useful. Or even just his ability to change heights like that, where he's dropping down to a knee and scooting forward so quickly, dropping down to a knee, scooting forward, and then turning around so quickly. All of these things are just unbelievably beneficial for the sport. If you're a rugby player and you're looking at someone doing this and you'd say, why would that ever be useful for a rugby player? It's not that it's going to be directly useful. It won't be as directly useful as it will be for something like wrestling or like folk style wrestling. But it would still be incredible to have a player who's able to do that, who's able to manipulate their body into those positions. And certainly in the case of mitigating injuries, having that level of mobility and that level of body awareness and proprioception would be so valuable.
I've been saying it for a while, but a lot of times people think, oh, all our best weightlifters or all of the USA's best weightlifters are in American football, but it is definitely, I don't think that's the case. I think a lot of their best weightlifters are in wrestling and shot put more likely, and if you got them, those freaks training at a young age in weightlifting, you'd probably see they'd outperform, or you'd see a better team than just the American footballers. You know, it's quite a different build. It's one thing to be able to power clean big weights or clean a big weight, but consistently hitting big snatches and clean and jerks, and the resilience to that compared to what the wrestlers are able to do and the positions they're able to hit. I think you'd probably see, if you could get every one of those sports together, you'd probably see the wrestlers coming out. And they certainly have the mental resilience for weightlifting to take it to those big levels.
That mental resilience as well is so important. You're talking about an individual sport versus a team sport. You're also talking about something where the training is so grueling. Like training in field sports, you have hard sessions, you have easy sessions, but it's pretty enjoyable. Most of us love going training. Even in your pre-season, no matter how bad it gets, you still like it. You're hanging out with the team, you're getting some reps in, even if the most work is running or conditioning or whatever it is. In sports like wrestling and sports like weightlifting, the training is utterly grueling. It doesn't matter if you're training with a team or outside of a team. It doesn't matter if you're in your shed with a few training partners or if you're in a big training center. The training's really, really hard, and getting good quality athletes are people who are actually able to hold on and get through those big blocks of training repeatedly for years and years on end.
Yeah, a lot of times it's not just the physical aspect, but it's the psychological aspect of weightlifting to keep coming back. Now here we've got Sam Sheeter, Maxim Sheeter's older brother, and he is doing 138 by 4, what he calls a Viper press, which is interesting. But essentially, it's a muscle snatch from the hip with a log at 138 kilos for a set of 4. So I'd never heard it's called a Viper press. Obviously, this is the variation you'd use with the log, but or Sam is just horsing up this weight.
It's a high hang muscle snatch with a log, like.
Yeah.
And horsing it up is the only thing to talk about. It is insanely impressive to be doing those weights. To be honest, I'm not massively au fait with the Viper press. I haven't seen a massive amount. I'm not sure what the kind of max end weights that we see guys doing it on. But I think for people watching this from other sports, this would be a pretty applicable thing. If you're a thrower in your off season, or maybe if you're a combat sports athlete looking for some extra muscular endurance, you're not going to be doing it at 138 kilos for 4 reps, but certainly doing something along these lines will get some valuable work into your upper back, your mid back, and your shoulders.
Yeah, the neutral grip, or that kind of palms facing grip, palms facing each other grip, is quite a nice grip to use, but obviously then the circumference of the log makes things quite uncomfortable, so it's by no means an easy feat. So 138 kilos. The funny thing about logs as well is that there's always so little plates on the barbell until you get really heavy, so you know, it makes it look like you're not doing a whole lot, but in reality you're doing nearly 140 kilo muscle snatches from the hip for sets of 4. And if anyone is related to weightlifting, you'll be like, oh. Now, here we've got another person who attempted that 5-4-3-2-1 challenge, which was the deadlift 500, squat 400, bench 300, and then try and run a sub 2 minute 800 meters. We had track strength attempted, and this guy Max Hybrid attempted it as well. And for me personally, when it comes to the hybrid challenges, I don't particularly love the really long distance ones. I still like the ones where you're putting in a high pace. It's still a bit more of a kind of power event, you would say. So he did 2 minutes and 3 seconds, which obviously is that's a terrible 800 meter timing. So it's embarrassing that he even put this online. The big thing as well, this is done within the same hour also, which must be noted as being pretty crazy. And I think most people are like, oh yeah, that 800 meters is crazy with those lifts, but you could look at this again, like I was saying last week, and be like, oh, how impressive is that? But in reality, this is
insanely impressive.
Yeah, someone out there can do it.
Yeah, there's people out there who can do it, but it's a very small cohort of people.
Yes.
This, I feel so utterly sorry for this dude, Max. He said it's attempt number 1. I hope he comes back and smashes it, because 3.38 seconds on something like this is gut-wrenching, you know.
But the thing is, that's ages away in some ways. Like, it's so close, but it's like,
yeah,
after that, like, he could probably do that fresh, the sub 2, the 2
yes,
fresh, But trying to do that after fatigue it's brutal.
And it's funny, like, depending on what you're good at and what you're bad at, putting that 800 meters at the start mightn't be a bad idea at all. You know, and moving some things around, doing the 800 meters, maybe you come into the gym, then you do your bench press, and then your deadlift and your squat, and then your deadlift, moving things around or tweaking things like that. I know the guys we've seen do it, or the guy we saw do it in last week's news show, obviously did a 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 in that order. But in this case, a small alteration of that order, you're still within the hour, still getting everything done, but it might just make that difference on the pace.
The thing is, unless you're already running an 800 meter, you're probably not going to come from a strength sport and get that sub 2 minute 800 meters.
It's the other thing is, he said his bench press PR 2 weeks ago was 120 kilos.
Oh, so he made a massive PB.
Massive PB. It's some going.
Lastly, to finish, we've got Ryan Crouser with a 230 kilo front squat double. So Ryan seems to love his front squats and some variations of those. So this is, of course, always impressive. Ryan is a shot putter and always deep. Front rack position, don't ever see him with the crossed hands. So he's like racking that on his fingertips. So very, very, very impressive.
Ryan loves the front squat, and to be honest, I think the front squat loves Ryan. He is a very, very impressive athlete in this case. What kind of puts this into context even more, we've seen some of the rugby players as they went through the Six Nations, and some of their training videos were going up, and they had some heavy front squats in there. They're big boys, they're moving a lot of weight. They're not moving anywhere near this kind of weight.
I think Ryan just is suited to all those barbell lifts, like the power snatches, the squatting, the deadlifting.
He's just good at it all.
Powerlifting. I think he's just a pretty good athlete. I think he's suited to all of those. Seems to take his S&C very, very seriously, as one needs to in throwing. So thanks for watching today's episode of the Sika Strength News Show. Thank you for everyone who sent in stuff to the news show. There's loads of those messages. It takes ages to go through them. We're very, very appreciative of that. So do please keep DMing us those messages on Sika Strength Instagram, and really appreciate that. So again, I look through every single one of them, make sure I look through all those attempts, and it takes a while to curate it and make sure that we're getting the best news show possible, because we wouldn't see all those things. So we are hugely appreciative.
Thanks, guys.